Welcome. This time on WoodWorks, we're going to show you how to build this beautiful wall-mounted display cabinet. Hi, I'm David Marks. Welcome to WoodWorks. For the display cabinet that we're going to be making this time, we're going to be using two different types of wood. Cherry for the case and flame maple for the back panel.
The fine grain and the rich red color bring a warmth to the cherry wood case and to the door frame which holds the glass. In contrast, the figured grain of the maple in the back panel shows off a tight curl that has an electric quality to it. The top and bottom add visual weight and give the case an Egyptian feel. They're carved out of thick blocks of cherry, and that's where we'll start this project.
Here's an example of the top of our display cabinet. And this is an example of our cove molding. Now, cove molding is basically just a concave shape cut into the side of a piece of wood. A lot of furniture makers prefer to make their cove molding out of individual strips of wood. But for the sake of efficiency, we decided to combine the cove molding plus the shaping plus the top of the display cabinet in one solid block. Now, this is called a story block. Now, this is nothing more than a series of cuts done on the table saw until we got the profile that we really liked for the top of the display cabinet. What's great about this is basically a step-by-step guide that's going to show us how to make our molding. So on the side, we've written down the numbers, which will tell us the order that we make our cuts in. And on the back, we've written out the description, which is basically going to show us the setups that we need to make on the table saw. Now, this strange-looking setup is actually the fence that we're going to be using to cut out our cove molding. Now, the first time that I was introduced to this, I asked myself, how in the heck are we going to cut across the blade of a table saw diagonally? Well, it turns out that by cutting across the blade diagonally, the arc of the blade is actually going to create the arc of the curve in our cove molding. So we're going to go ahead and use the steps of our story block as a guide to cut out the top and the bottom of our display cabinet out of these massive pieces of 2 3/8 of an inch thick solid cherry stock.
The first step is to cut the cove. We raise the saw blade a 1/16 of an inch at a time until we've reached the full height. In step 2, a rabbet is cut on each piece, resetting the blade in small increments until the profile is completely cut. For step 3, we set the saw blade at a 30-degree angle and make the first cut of our bevel. And in step 4, we move the blade over to 10 degrees, stand the block against the fence, and we'll finish making our bevel. Next, we'll smooth away the mill marks left from the table saw. For this, we've got a great tool. It's a gooseneck scraper. It's perfect to fit into our cove and scrape down the wood to a nice, smooth surface.
Okay, we finished milling the last of the sides for our display cabinet. Now here is an example of the casework for our project. We're going to be using some biscuit joinery to attach the sides to the top and to the bottom. Now over here is the top of our display cabinet that we milled up earlier. Did the shaping on the sides, we made some pencil marks there, we've laid it out so we know exactly where to do our joinery. So we're going to go ahead and position our biscuit cutter exactly on the center lines and go ahead and mill out our slots for the joinery. We've already got our joinery done on the casework, but we don't want to glue it up yet because we need to finish drilling these holes in the sides of the cabinet. Now, it's important that these holes line up so that our glass shelves sit nice and level. But that's not a problem because we got this real simple to use jig that we made. Now, all the spacing's been lined up on the side, and basically the way this thing works is the bottom of the jig references against the bottom of the cabinet. The side of the jig references against the side of the cabinet. That will ensure that all of our reference points remain the same. We put a little bit of double stick tape on the bottom, and that's going to be real helpful too, because it'll just make sure that when we put it on here, it's not going to slip. All right, got all these lined up. Oh, one last thing to remember. We've already set the depth gauge on the drill press, and that's real important because what you don't want to do is end up drilling your hole through the side of the cabinet wall.
Once the holes are drilled, we get the case ready for glue-up. Biscuit joinery is strong enough for the case at this point. It's important that the corners are square so that the back frame and panel will fit in easily later on. And a good fit will make that case even stronger. For more information on making this display cabinet, check out our website at DIYnet.com.
When we return, we'll make a beautiful flame maple panel for our display case.
David Marks and WoodWorks is followed by DIY woodworking and woodworking techniques. Woodworking starts here, Saturday mornings at 11 on DIY Network.
When I think of woodworking, I think of tradition.
When I think of woodworking, I think of power tools.
When I think of woodworking, I think about possibilities.
When I think of woodworking, I think of woodcraft.
Woodcraft.
I think of woodcraft.
Woodcraft, helping you make wood work.
Right now, if you're taking medication for arthritis pain, the facts can be hard to get a grip on. We can't tell you if your prescription puts you at risk. Only your doctor can. But what we can tell you is that no other pain reliever is safer than Tylenol when used as directed, and that Tylenol arthritis pain works as well as prescription ibuprofen. Hopefully that will give you something to hold on to.
Welcome back. This time we're building a beautiful wall-mounted display cabinet.
We've already shaped the cove moldings for the case. Now it's time to make the flame maple panel for the back.
We have got a spectacular piece of flame maple for our back panel. Now we're going to resaw this over on the bandsaw. But before we do, the first thing we want to do is get it flat on the jointer. Now, one of the problems with any piece of highly figured wood is it's prone to chipping out. So listen up. Here's a major piece of information that a lot of woodworkers don't know about. What we want to do is send our knives out to a good quality saw sharpening service and ask them to put a back bevel on the knives. And what we're after specifically is a net cutting angle of 10 degrees. Now that is going to tremendously reduce the problem of chipping out.
Remember, by passing the wood slowly over the jointer, we'll get a cleaner cut. And pushing the panel stock over the knives on an angle also helps minimize chip out. Now we resaw the panels to thickness on the bandsaw. Next, we run the pieces for our flame maple panel through the drum sander to get the thickness we want, about 1/4 inch. After making sure the inside edges are jointed, we'll roll out some glue. Lay the matching edges together and clamp it. Now we've got the panel for the back of our display cabinet.
For this particular project, we're going to be making 2 frames. One for the panel that goes into the back of our display cabinet, and another one for the door that's going to hold the glass for our display cabinet. Now we're going to be using a stile and a rail construction. In the joinery, we're going to be making a mortise and a loose tenon construction. Now as a design thing, we've decided to go ahead and add some visual weight. So we're going to make our bottom rail wider than the rail at the top. What this means is we've got to go ahead and make our joinery wider at the bottom than at the top. Now we've got our router table all set up We've got some stop blocks clamped into place, and that's going to control the length of the mortise cut. We've got our 2-flute carbide router bit there, so let's go ahead and cut the mortise in the bottom rail.
Making the cut in progressive steps, about 1/4 of an inch at a time, will reduce stress on the bit. We repeat the process on the rails for both the door frame and the panel frame, making adjustments for the different size mortises. For the stiles on both frames, we need to add an auxiliary fence to allow for the extra length. The mortises and the stiles will have to match the appropriate size of the ones we cut in the rails. Next, we use a smaller 2-flute bit, 3/32 of an inch, to cut a dado in the panel frame. This is where we'll insert the flame maple panel later on. On the door frame, we cut a rabbet in the back to house the glass. To take away the sharp edges on the inside of both frames, we use an 1/8 inch radius bit to give it a rounded, more friendly feel. When radiusing the stiles, it's important to mark the position for the cut, to make sure we don't run past the points where the stile meets the rails.
This is our tenon stock here. Now we've previously milled it to thickness on the planer, and then we ripped it to width on the table saw. Now what we just did was to use an 1/8 inch radius bit on the router table, and what this did was to just sort of subtly soften and round the edges of our tenon stock. What this is going to do is ensure that it fits the rounded corners of our mortise. See? Now that gives us a good snug fit. Okay, our next step is to go ahead and cut it to length on the table saw.
For the different sized mortises in our 2 frames, we'll end up making 3 sizes that match the mortises. Now we can glue up the frame for the door. The stiles and rails can be secured by clamping right across the joints.
The glue is dry on our panel that's going to go into the frame for the back of the display cabinet. We're just taking some final passes here with a scraper, and this will get rid of the scratches left by the drum sander. Well, you can really see the depth of the curl of that flame maple coming out. Now let's take this over to the table saw. We'll go ahead and trim this to size, make sure it fits into our frame. Now we can glue the panel into the frame. We want to be sure to only put glue in the mortises and on the tenons, not in the dado, so the panel has room to expand and contract. This is looking good. We'll give this a couple of hours for the glue to set. And now we'll work on our door frame. We've already had some time for this, for the glue to dry. And next, we're going to route a decorative bead along this inside edge of the door frame. We're going to do that with a handheld router. Now we're ready to go ahead and route the bead along this inside edge. What that's going to do is give us a really nice shadow line. It'll just give you something for your eye to follow. Here's a router with a customized base plate, and we've got a dowel glued in here, which is going to act as a bearing, and that'll travel along the inside edge of the frame and make sure that our V-bit is maintained at 3/16 of an inch. That'll make sure we have a nice, accurate cut.
Next, we finish up the bead with some hand tools. A V-gouge squares up the bead in the corners, and a fine Italian riffler file adds detail to the work.
Coming up next on WoodWorks, installing our hinges the easy way.
Take a look at that dado cut. I used a jig on the curve, but hit a crook, probably from radical shrinkage.
Need to brush up on the lingo? Watch DIY Woodworking, Saturday at 12:30 Eastern on DIY Network.
Saturday, DIY Network is in the workshop. Woodworking, featuring David Marks and WoodWorks, followed by DIY Woodworking and Wood Turning Techniques. Woodworking starts here, Saturday mornings at 11 on DIY Network.
A renewed sense of confidence has come to the full-size sedan. Introducing the Ford 500. It combines the control of front wheel or available all-wheel drive with an innovative reinforced structure for precise handling and a secure feeling on the road. The new Ford 500, elevating the sedan. Ford, built for the road ahead.
We're Geldwin, and for more than 40 years, we've been making reliable windows and doors. Minus 20 outside, catching 20 inside. It's good and quiet. Dreary weather outside, cozy evening inside. Comfort, security, dependability. Geldwin windows and doors. Reliability for real life.
There's an easier way to freshen the whole room. Blade Plug-in Scented Oil Fan. The first air freshener that uses a quiet fan, so it actively circulates your favorite fragrance throughout the entire room.
There. Isn't that better?
Blade Plug-in Scented Oil Fan.
Freshness with a spin. Plug it in, plug it in.
S.C. Johnson, a family company.
We are the men and women of the United States Army Reserve. We are regular people who share our time serving our country and our communities. Our training makes us stronger as soldiers and as citizens who stand ready.
To find out how you can serve your country in the Army Reserve, call 1-888-624-ARMY for this free DVD and get a free sports watch. Stand ready in the Army Reserve.
Now showing on Channel 538, the Last Chance channel from Dish On Demand pay-per-view. This movie is available for the special price of only $1.99, but time is running out. See it now before it's gone for good. Channel 538, the Last Chance channel, where great movies are always $1.99 from Dish On Demand pay-per-view.
I couldn't pay my bills.
It was ruining my life.
In Charge Debt Solutions is a nonprofit credit counseling service that's here to help you get out of debt. We work with creditors nationwide to reduce your interest rates and lower your payments, helping you pay off your debt faster than you could on your own.
I was on the verge of bankruptcy. Soon I'll be debt-free.
In Charge can stop the collection calls and design a solution that's right for you. In Charge is private and confidential, so make the call and get back in charge of your life today.
Have a leaky faucet or a major plumbing problem? Meet DIY's Ed the Plumber. Wednesday nights at 8:30 Eastern on DIY Network. Online at DIYNetwork.com.
Welcome back. Our project this time is this wall-mounted display cabinet with cove molding at the top and the bottom.
We made our door and built the frame and panel for the back of the case. Now we're adding glue to the rabbet on the sides of the case, fitting the back in place and making sure it sits in tight.
What we're doing with this crazy looking setup is actually clamping the back panel down into the case of our display cabinet. Now we've got one clamp here to apply some pressure to the top and bottom, and some other clamps on the side that will put some sideways pressure in. But the main thing we want to look at are these three cawls. What this is going to do is give us some pressure and really push that panel down into the back of the cabinet. Now the way that we achieve that is by taking these clamps and clamping our cawls down to the work table. This will ensure that we really get the force we need to push this panel down into the rabbet and really seat nice and tight. We're working on the back of the door frame for a display cabinet. And what you really want here is a nice square corner. Now the router bit that we used to go ahead and cut the rabbet left a rounded corner. So what works really well is a good sharp chisel. This will actually make it easy to go ahead and square up that corner. That's looking good. Now we'll go ahead and take the glass and set this into place. And this is a good time to take our measurements for the trim that we're going to be making to hold the glass into the back of the door frame.
First, we cut some cherry stock on the bandsaw, milling the thickness a bit oversized. Then, we put it through the drum sander to clean it up. Next, we cut the pieces to size on the chop saw, making a miter for the corners. And finally, on the drill press, we make the holes for the pins that will hold the trim to the door frame.
We have got some really nice solid brass hinges for attaching our door to our display cabinet. Now by holding it in this position, this gives us a nice positive reference point for laying out our pencil marks. We're going to go ahead and use the plunge router to route out a mortise here, but before we do, it's a good idea to take a good sharp chisel and just go ahead and lay it on those pencil lines and give it a few taps. What that's going to do is give us a scribe line, which will really make it a whole lot easier to see our boundaries when we go ahead and route out our mortise using a plunge router.
We use a 2-flute bit to route out the mortise for the hinges. Then we clean up the cuts with a sharp blade of our chisel. Next, we fit the door into the case and mark the position for the mortises on the door. Again, cut the mortises and finish them up with the chisel.
Coming up next, our display cabinet gets a handcrafted handle and a finish that's warmed by the sun.
You know what he's doing. He's doing what you're doing. There you are, HD ready and waiting. Don't you want Voom, the satellite service born for HD? Don't you want over 4,000 hours a week of great HD programming? Don't you want your new HD TV to rock? Voom has your favorite movies, sports, cable, and available local digital channels, and over 20 Voom HD originals only on Voom. CNET.com says it's the ultimate source for HD TV. Your TV wants more than just a few HD channels, and so do you. If you want to be more thrilled, more excited, more scared, get Voom, changing TV from something you watch into something you feel. What are you waiting for? Get more HD. Call today or visit Voom.com. You know you want to.
Now get Voom in every room. Try it for 6 months. Get 3 rooms professionally installed for just $1. $1. You've got that in your sofa. Call 1-866-677-VOOM today. It's a limited time offer. 1-866-677-VOOM.
You can improve your lifestyle in just 48 hours. Upgrade your family room or create an outdoor kitchen with DIY's Weekend Remodeling. Wednesdays at 8 Eastern on DIY Network. Online at DIYNetwork.com. Join hosts Steve Thomas and Norm Abram as we revisit 20 years of America's favorite home improvement show. This Old House Classics. Tonight at 7:30 Eastern on DIY Network.
A DIY project is something you can really get your arms around. Out with the old, in with the new. Everything's looking good and under control, when all of a sudden you're in way over your head. That's why there's DIY to the rescue. Our home repair experts are hitting the highway to help do-it-yourselfers everywhere that are in too deep. DIY to the rescue. Wednesday at 9 Eastern on DIY Network.
Welcome back. Our display cabinet is almost complete.
For more details on making this display cabinet, go to our website at DIYnet.com. We've glued our flame maple back to the case and fit the case and door with hinges. Now we're ready to add the finishing touches.
we're screwing on our solid brass hinges to our display cabinet case. This way we can go ahead and test fit our door to make sure that it's well articulated and opens and closes real nice. Okay. Now, for one of our final touches, we're going to add this solid cherry handle that we've already cut out on the scroll saw. We've cut these curves into the top and bottom of our handle, and this is going to echo the curves of our cove moldings at the top and bottom of our display cabinet. This is really going to add a lot of warmth and beauty to the cabinet. Really give it that sort of handcrafted feel.
After a once-over to check details, we put on a tung oil finish. It will take about 4 coats of tung oil, drying and buffing in between each, to get a good-looking finish.
We're going to set this outside to dry because cherry, exposed to the sun, oxidizes to a beautiful deep red color.
Finally, the glass can be put in the door. We hold the trim in place with brass escutcheon pins.
Okay, we're just setting our last glass shelf into place. And guess what? It sits level. The drill jig worked. We knew it would. So, you know what? It's a great feeling to be at this stage and to see the whole piece come together. It really turned out nicely. Beautiful piece.
The lively grain of the flame maple back panel looks great next to the rich red tones of the cherry, and the elegant large curves at the top and bottom set against the thin lines of the door frame really make this an inviting piece.
One last thing. To hang our display cabinet to the wall, we're going to use this. This is called a French cleat. This is going to screw to the wall, and then our cabinet's going to drop on the back, easy and strong. So that about wraps it up for our display cabinet. I'm David Marks. We'll see you right here next time on WoodWorks.
I'm Tad Fyak. I'm a wood carver. I use high-tech tools in a very, very old craft. I call myself a wood carver because basically I think of carving as manipulation of wood. Well, whether you do it with a knife or whether you do it with a high-speed grinder, the end result is the same. You've moved wood from a tree to the floor to something that's neat-looking. I started doing woodworking when I was about 40 years old, and I found out I didn't like to sand. And I was at a gallery and I saw some little hummingbirds that were just like this little hummingbird here. And I said, that's what I want to do. This is a piece that I made for my wife. She wanted to have flowers and her African violets always kept dying. So I made this little guy, and it's a terracotta pot, which is made out of wood. What I found was a piece of wood that had a crack in it. And use that as the pot crack. So you can see here where the crack in the wood is. Then I made a little trowel out of wood, and the painting and everything is done with acrylics so that it looks like it's rusted wood. Put a house wren on it with the concept of it's carrying a piece of grass. And then I made my wife's African violets so that she could have them and not have to water them. The whole world of carving and painting or any type of art is learning how to see, learning to make your eyes tell your fingers what to do. Your eye can do a better job of telling your fingers what to do than your brain can. It may look real, but it's just a wood carving, and you can do it yourself.
This week on the DIY Workshop, home energy savings. Stop your money from going through the roof. Find out how to tighten up those energy leaks. You'll learn how to identify your home's weak spots and what to do about them. Then, the experts share tips on storm windows and doors, how to take control of your heating bills, and show you the latest innovations that'll help cut costs. Home energy savings. All this week at 6:30 Eastern on DIY Network.
Two teams going head-to-head. A fully stocked tool warehouse. One project, and only 8 hours to do it. Warehouse Warriors.
You've got the best seat in the house.
Today at 5 Eastern on DIY Network.
I am so glad this is over.